Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cardinals Weekly. I'm Corey Miller.
And I'm Ahmad Hicks. We're just over 2 weeks into the baseball season, and the Cardinals have been like a roller coaster. A little bit of up and down action. So we're going to start with leading off.
Yeah, it has been a roller coaster so far. Just in this past week, we've seen the Cardinals get shut out twice, score just 2 runs twice, and then score 12 and 9 runs. So it's a feast or famine, and it's frustrating. But you can kind of plan your nights like, okay, the Cardinals scored a bunch of runs the night before, so it's probably going to be a low-scoring pitcher's duel this next game. Oh, it's been a little while. The Cardinals are going to score 10 runs tonight.
Exactly. It's like you never know what team is going to show up when you're watching the game. It's like, all right, if you show up in the third inning and it's a scoreless game, you're like, all right, we're probably not going to get any runs tonight. Then if you show up in the first inning and they score 5 runs, you're like, all right, we're on pace. I may need to go grab me a couple more drinks because we're going to be here for a while. So
team batting average down at 226, which is not good. Team slugging percentage, though, 403, 7th best in baseball. So they're crushing it at times and getting all of their hits at once and hitting a lot of home runs because they're tied for the most home runs in baseball as coming into Wednesday, but just not consistently. We're not going to lay into Matt Carpenter quite as much this week. We did that last week. He's getting enough people kicking him down. He got another hit. He's down at 3 hits on the year. He got thrown out going into second base when he got the hit, but he got another hit. Let's spotlight a guy that's doing well, though. Tommy Edman. I think this is going to be one of the most underrated players in baseball by the end of the year because the dude does everything.
I think confidence speaks volumes too. This is a guy who's getting an opportunity. Schultz has let it be known that he's a starter, whether it's going to be a second base or right field. So I think when you have the support of your manager and you have the support of your clubhouse, your confidence goes through the roof. And seeing how he's already played a season with the Cardinals, he's kind of like, all right, this is my spot. Now I need to own it. And you have to love it. He's showing his versatility. He's making great catches in the outfield. He's snagging some balls at second base and he's getting on base and he has speed. That's what you need.
He beat out a routine ground ball the other day, and then the day before that, he had a home run on a 3-0 pitch, which is saying a lot because you got Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado coming up behind you, and you've got the confidence to swing at a 3-0 pitch with those guys coming up behind you, and you go yard, and opposite field, he crushed it. So he's got a little bit of everything working in. Looked like a good replacement so far for Colton Wong. Another guy who seems to be turning it around to the plate, figuring it out. Justin Williams seems like he's getting more comfortable. Last 8 games as of Wednesday, he's hitting 292, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 4 walks, OPS and 905. Still striking out a little bit, but looks like Justin Williams is settling in.
And what we have to remember, this guy's a rookie. This is his first big league action. Well, granted, he was at the alternate site last year and going up against some top competition, but this is a year where you're trying to see all those elite breaking balls that you've been watching on television for years to come. So he had to get adjusted. He had to settle in the first couple of weeks. And I think what you're seeing out of him and what we always heard coming out of spring training was this guy has a lot of power. He hits the ball really, really hard. It just goes right to the outfielders. Well, now he's starting to piece it all together. Now he's starting to get the ball over the fence and in the gaps. And I think, honestly, that's what you need to complement a Tyler O'Neill in left field and then a Dylan Carlson in center field. I think this outfield lineup that we have, if Williams and O'Neill and Carlson can play up to their potential, I think it'll be very dangerous at the end of the year.
Williams had maybe the most impressive home run I've seen from a Cardinal this year. He spanked the ball to left center field, 109 miles per hour. He smoked that thing to the opposite way. So definitely got some power. Good to see him figuring it out.
Did you notice how he paid attention to the fan who caught it to see if he threw it back like his first home run ball because he didn't know they threw it back?
That was the one. I think it was the kid in the Waffle House mask, wasn't it? They were making a big deal. I think he dropped Edmond home run,
and then came back and caught it.
They caught Justin Williams, and he was rubbing his hand for like the next inning because it was a 109 mile per hour line drive. He caught. Yeah, that was a great moment.
Yeah,
we can't forget about the pitching though. After a Tuesday night, just 2 starting pitchers have recorded an out in the 6th inning. Flaherty and Wainwright had a good night second game against the Nationals that ended up going to waste. Not good. Wainwright just got his first win. Well, no, he didn't get his first win because they blew
No, he
it.
didn't. Yeah. Yep.
So what are the Cardinals going to do? They got to get more innings from the starters for sure.
Well, I think what you saw was a positive sign last night that Waino went 7 innings. All right. We're starting to see that. We expect that from Waino. All right. Maybe not the 0 earned runs or the 1 earned run, but we do expect Waino to go 7 innings each and every time he steps on the bump. What you want to see is Jack Flaherty do that consistently. He's been a little up and down, but these are two guys that you have to rely on to go 7+ innings. I mean, you have to rely on those guys because then the back end of the starting rotation, when you get Michaelis back and KK Cam, he's still trying to work things out. You want to give the bullpen a little rest. And we haven't been giving the bullpen much rest this year. So if we keep things up, they're not going to be any good by the time we come to September and October. So I think you want to see your starters, Wainwright and Flaherty, go 7+. And I think the rest will take care of itself if they can go 7+ each and every night.
Hey, you mentioned Jack Flaherty. Seems like he's righted the ship. He's 3-0 with a 3.80 ERA. Obviously, the ERA a little bit higher than he'd like. Yeah, but he looks good, and he's going deeper. He notched his 500th career strikeout the other day. First fastest Cardinal pitcher in history to claim that feat, which is very impressive. Not going deep enough into games, as we said, yet, and he knows it too. Walking a few too many guys, trying to be too perfect around the edges and getting that pitch count up there. Let's hear from Jack, actually, and see what he thinks about where his game is at right now and how he could get better.
Quality start's a funny stat. I forget what it turns out to, but it's like if you threw a quality start in every single one of your stats, you'd have like a 4.5 ERA or something. And so you can make with that what you want. So for certain guys, it may be good enough, but we're trying to go deeper into games. We're trying to continue to execute pitches and not stop at 5 and not stop at 6. Continue to go out and at the end of the day, your job out there starting pitchers, you're just to give your team a chance to win. So whatever that comes out to, some days it's 5, some days it's 6, some days 7, whatever it is. But if you come out of the game and you have a lead and your team has a chance to win, you've done your job. And now it's just about, we try to set the bar. We have a little bit of higher standard with ourselves, and we push ourselves. We push each and every starter that we have to continue to do better and not really settle for anything. Just continue to know that we can get better each time out.
And one more important thing to note when it comes to Jack Flaherty, this is a guy who had his starts and his schedule thrown all over the place last year during the pandemic-ridden season. So if you really think about it and kind of the up and down start that he's had to this year, this guy really hasn't pitched consistently since 2019. So we can't expect him to come out here and be the Jack Flaherty that we saw at the end of 2019 in the second half of the season, because this guy really didn't get a full spring training last year. They had to stop and start, then all the games, and then they had to throw his rotation all over the place. So now he's getting back to his normal schedule routine. So I think by the middle of the summer, when the humidity in St. Louis is picking up and it's hot outside, I think that's when you'll start to see Jack finding his niche. And I think then he'll be the Jack Flaherty that we're all accustomed to seeing.
For this week's Spotlight interview, we have somebody who's probably forgotten more Cardinals history than Ahmad and I have ever known. Art Holliday, of course, who used to work in sports at Channel 5. He's now the news director. And we're going to prize some good stories out of you here today, Art, I think.
I got stories and I got love for the Cardinals. So let's go.
Let's roll it.
First off the bat, just tell us, growing up in St. Louis, who were your guys growing up and why did you come to love the Cardinals?
Oh, that's easy. I became a lifelong Cardinal fan in the 60s. I remember in 1964, I was probably in 3rd grade maybe, and this is when they had day World Series games, and they rolled a TV in, and we got to watch the Cardinals and the Yankees, and I was hooked. And so the rest of the 60s, my guys were the late Lou Brock, the late Bob Gibson, Bill White. For a young black kid growing up and becoming a baseball fan, the Cardinals were the perfect team because they had, I didn't even mention Curt Flood, who literally changed the game because of his impact on the fight for free agency. So you had all of these amazing talents, strong personalities, proud black men at a time when the country was insane. You know, Bob Gibson's best year, 1968. In fact, let me show you something.
The historian's coming out now.
Show and tell.
Okay, this is my prized possession. Okay, this is by the late artist Ahmad, who drew for, was it the Post or the Globe? I think it was the Post. And I did a story on him. And I saw this in his studio and I said, hey, is that for sale? And so later on, so I got Ahmad to sign it. And then later on, I got Bob Gibson to sign it. Okay, so 1968, Bob Gibson's best year, 1.12. He literally changed the game that year because he was so dominant. They lowered the mound. But look at what else was happening in 68. You had the assassination of Dr. King. You had the assassination of Robert Kennedy. You had the anti-war protests. There were, you know, it seems insane, some of the same things that we're fighting for now in 2001, or 21 rather, they were fighting for socially in 1968. And baseball was a respite from everything else that was going on in the country. And I was a huge Bob Gibson fan. And this was at a time when most of the games were on radio. There were only a handful of games on TV. I didn't miss a radio game when Gibson was pitching that year because, and here's how good he was. I was disappointed whenever he gave up a run.
I wish we had that nowadays. I wish.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, Jack Flaherty got a taste of it a couple of seasons ago when he had that half season that was Gibson-esque, but Bob Gibson did it for a whole year. 1.12, and he lost 9 games. What if they had scored some runs for him?
Yeah,
60s were
that's something.
choice decade to grow up as a Cardinals fan with some of those role models.
No doubt.
So you eventually come over to St. Louis as a broadcaster, and you get to cover your hometown team. I know there's been moments when Ahmad and I are doing something cool, and we're looking at each other like, dude, we're actually getting to do this. Was there moments like that for you when you first started out?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't remember the details. I remember the feeling of the first time I went to Busch Stadium as a reporter. That was one of the things that brought me back to St. Louis. In 1979, I had a job offer to go to Tampa or come home to St. Louis. You know, I could be young and single and going to the beach, or I could come home where my parents could see me and where I could cover my beloved Cardinals. It was an easy decision. I underestimated how much it meant to my parents, and I underestimated how much feeling I had for covering not only the St. Louis Cardinals football team, baseball team, but the football team and the Blues, the teams that I had grown up with. And so that was a very special thing to me, as I'm sure you all have experienced, like you alluded to. So, I mean, I remember, and these are 2 press box stories, right? So I remember I was in the press box and all of a sudden I'm walking toward Bob Gibson. So I went over and introduced myself, and I tried to explain to him what he had meant to me as a child and how much of a fan I was. And Gibson had this look on his face like, is this going to be over soon? he wasn't terribly impressed that I was a huge Bob Gibson fan. And then one other time I was in the press box and I'm walking toward Bob Costas. And I'm like, you know, and this was when Bob Costas was really just becoming a national figure. Everybody in St. Louis knew how great he was. Because of his work at KMOX radio, and he was getting a lot of national assignments, but he was becoming Bob Costas, the legend, right? And so he was one of my role models and heroes. And ultimately I got to be friendly with him, which I I still can't believe that happened. But I'm walking toward Bob Costas, and so I'm going to introduce myself. And before I could say anything, he sticks out his hand and goes, "Hey, Art, I'm Bob Costas." One, why does he know who I am? And two, why does he think I don't know who he is? But you know, but we got to be friendly, and Costas actually recommended me for a network job to be an NBA sideline reporter, and I didn't know anything about it. And I get a call out of the blue from one of their college basketball producers to get a couple of live auditions, and then ultimately they hired Ahmad, which broke my heart. But
a legend though in the game. A legend.
Bob just became a really cool person, and that was the first time that I met him. And another quick Bob Costas story, and then we'll move on back to the Cardinals. My wife calls me. This is a few years back. Bob Costas wants you to call him. Okay, so I call him. Art, Wynton Marsalis and his band are in town, and we're trying to get a pickup basketball game together. Can you come to the Missouri Athletic Club? You know, that's not a call that you forget, right?
No.
And so I had been having a lot of back trouble, and we were getting to go on my wife and I were getting ready to go on a cruise, and she goes, "I know you're going to go play basketball with Bob Costas and Wynton Marsalis, but if you hurt your back playing, don't bother to come home." So luckily I didn't get hurt, and I got to play a pickup basketball game with Bob Costas and Wynton Marsalis. So anyway,
cool.
what's your next Cardinal question? Let's go.
No, we can't have Art Holliday on the show without talking about two of the most memorable moments in KSDK over the years in sports. So the first one, obviously, my pick for the greatest live moment in St. Louis TV. You in the locker room with Vince Coleman, 1987, after they win the NL East. Let's watch it first. I'll insert it here in this interview.
What else you want to know?
They haven't seen it yet, and we'll come back.
The celebrating continues, and we go now to the Cardinals locker room and Channel 5's Art Holliday. Arthur.
Well, the champagne and beer is flowing here in the Cardinal locker room. The Cardinals, as you might expect, for being the National League East champions, they're having quite a celebration now. The best in the world, right?
We got an all-star at every position. Jack Clark, Tommy Herzog, Ozzie Smith, Terry Pendleton, Willie McGee, Tony Pickett. What else you want to know? Hey, everybody dressed at 6 o'clock.
One serious comment.
What?
One serious comment.
What you want to know?
The Cardinals had so many injuries this year. So much adversity to overcome. It's really a credit to the character of this ball club, the way they bounce back time and again from all the injuries.
We bounce back and we play consistent baseball. I think that's the most important word associated with the game right now. I mean, you know, when you have guys coming off the bench and being consistent every day, I mean, we post consistency in offense and pitching and relief pitching and defense. And when you have those categories, you know, that's what it's going to take to win championships.
Okay, while the Cardinals reload, we're going to pitch it back to the studio. I'll be back later on in sports, a little drier. Reporting live from a very soggy locker room, Art Holliday, Channel 5, Eyewitness Sports.
Oh, thank you very much, Art. Thank you, Vince Coleman. Boy, it doesn't look like they're having any fun at all, does it?
All right, so Art, first of all, how often do people bring this up to you? Because it's got to be all the time. I even heard, I was watching a Fox baseball post-game show or something, and it was either Dontrell Willis or Frank Thomas or somebody. They were quoting this like after a game. They were going, Jack Clark, Tommy Herzog, Willie McGee. They were quoting it on air. So how often do people bring this up to you?
We got an all-star at every position. Well, definitely when the Cardinals are in the playoffs, it starts recirculating virally every time the Cardinals are in the postseason. So it's taken on a life of its own. Now, here's what I didn't realize. Last year, when I was doing my radio show with Jennifer Blome on KTRS, we had Vince Coleman on as a guest. And so the night before, I was looking at his red jacket Cardinal Hall of Fame acceptance speech because I'd never seen it in its entirety. And I thought I might get something that we could talk about during the radio interview. Well, I didn't realize that he had mentioned me by name in his red jacket acceptance speech. And I was like blown away. I didn't know. And so we talked about that. And so Coleman was talking about how people come up to him all the time because of that little videotaped interlude that we had in '87. You know, a young Mike Bush, a young Art Holliday, you know, covering the Cardinals. And Vince Coleman, to this day, I don't know if he was drunk. For a moment, he looked like he was the drunkest man on the planet. And then when I asked him a serious question, all of a sudden he straightened up. And I'm like, well, this is weird. But yeah, that's a classic. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but Ben Hochman of the Post-Dispatch wrote a book a couple of years ago. And forgive me for, I'm blanking on, I think it was like 50 great Cardinal moments. That's not the exact title, but that was the idea behind the book. And one of the chapters was the Art Holliday, Vince Coleman interview. So that was kind of cool.
It's definitely taken on a life of its own. Like you said, this had to be only like 15 minutes after the game. So if he was drunk, I don't know how he did it that fast. And
he chugged a lot, that's for sure.
He got so serious though at like a snap of a finger. So that was pretty impressive. I got to know what happened to those clothes that you were wearing. They've
never been seen since. Well, after hold on.
Uh-oh. More history for you all.
We got another one. Okay, this is what we're talking about here. That's me getting doused with more champagne. After they ran out of champagne, they started throwing fruit juice. Oh, so wow. That gray and black sweater suddenly became pink and black.
So yeah, that's over with.
The IFB that was in my ear, part of it was metal, and it was starting to short out from all of the moisture. So I'm getting little jolts of electricity in my ear the whole time.
That was tough, I'm sure.
I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it.
Good thing it's rubber now. We don't have anything to worry about.
So the second story we have to bring up with Art Holliday on the show this week is in the 80s. You can tell me what year, Art, when you somehow convinced Whitey Herzog to wear a wireless mic in the middle of a game. And people still talk about that story to this day. Andy Moeller, our sports producer, and I were just talking about it yesterday. It seems impossible now. How crazy of an idea was it back then?
Well, then I thought it was a brilliant idea, but looking back, I appreciate how insane it was to try to convince a major league manager to wear a wireless microphone. I mean, this isn't NBC or ESPN coming to it. This is a weekend sportscaster at KSDK saying, "Hey, Whitey, would you put a wireless on and let us follow you around all game and have a camera in the dugout?" I mean, now it sounds like the most insane idea in the world.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen nowadays. Bally Sports would be like, absolutely not.
I mean, well, can you imagine going up to Tony La Russa and saying, "Hey, Tony, would you wear a wireless microphone for us?" That's probably not going to happen.
I wouldn't even ask that question.
Yeah. Luckily, Jay Randolph was doing some of the Cardinal games. KSDK used to carry a handful of Cardinal games every year. And so Jay he took my idea to Whitey. And it took a couple of, it took a couple of sessions to convince him to do it, but he did. So the backstory is it's 1983. It's the year after the Cardinals have won their first World Series in 15 years. And Whitey is the toast of the town. And so I went to my bosses and I said, we should do a profile of Whitey Herzog. People can't get enough of him. And then that's when the idea came to try to get him to wear a wireless. Okay, so the day of the game, we're putting the wireless on Whitey. And he goes, I don't know why you guys want to put a microphone on me. I never say anything during a game. And I didn't know if he was joking or if he was serious. And if he was serious, that was terrifying. Well, what if he doesn't say anything during a game?
Right.
So I didn't know what to think. So we had the run of the place. We're in Whitey's office before the game, and he's talking to Rick Hummel and Rob Raines before the game, just shooting the breeze with him. And then he goes into the clubhouse, walks up to George Hendrick. Hey, George, how's it going? Walks up to Keith Hernandez. Hey, Keith, how's it going? He's just working the room, getting his players ready, seeing, getting them pumped up, right? Okay, so we got that. So then Joaquin Andujar is pitching. And for longtime Cardinal fans, they know that Andujar was a fantastic trade that the Cardinals made to get from the Houston Astros. 2-time 20-game winner for the Cardinals. Won some World Series games. So Andujar's having a rough day. So our camera's down the dugout from Whitey, and he's talking to his pitching coach, Hub Kittle. Hey, Hub, he looks like he's really struggling out there. Should I go talk to him? Yeah, Whitey, I think you should go talk to him. Okay, so then Whitey calls time. He walks out to the mound. What fan doesn't wonder what the hell is the manager saying to the pitcher? We rarely hear that. Even now that wireless microphones are a staple in sports coverage, not during the game. We get interviews, but we don't get a manager talking to his pitcher. That's pretty rare footage. And what we learned was that most of it's profanity.
Shocker.
Yeah.
That was my next question. How much were you not able to use?
Oh, we had to bleep a lot of it, but that made it even better. Everybody knew what he was saying, but he's like, Joaquin, you won 2 World Series games and you're throwing this blankety blank stuff up there today. Now take the blankety blank ball and throw it like you blankety blank can, and let's get these guys out. Okay. So that's gold nugget number 1, right? And then, part of what I hoped to do was to show why is Whitey Herzog considered to be one of the best managers in baseball. His ability to manage, 25 different personalities, his tactical skill, so how do you demonstrate that? Well, the Cardinals are in the midst of like a 5 or a 6 run rally. And Whitey is just working the dugout. He goes up to Mike Ramsey. Hey, Mike, if this happens, you're going to do this. Then he goes over to David Green. David, if this happens, you're going to do this. So Whitey's like 3 batters ahead of the guy in the batter's box taking pitches. And you couldn't have scripted it any better. And so all of those things combined to, I thought it was going to be a one-piece profile, and it wound up being 3 consecutive nights at 10. And they gave me like 4.5 minutes. And so each segment was a little bit different. The first segment was Whitey Herzog, the tactician, the manager, the guy who understands what it takes to manage 25 different personalities. So it was mostly a sit-down interview with him. And then I can't remember what the middle one was like, but then the last one was mostly just a Nat sound piece of Whitey going to the mound, Whitey in the dugout during the rally. And then we heard a little bit from him, explaining what happened. And, so that wound up being one of the most memorable stories that I did. And I think that I shared this with you, Corey, in a written piece. So that's 1983. Around 2010, KSDK is doing a weekly Cardinal show. and Andy Moeller, our sports producer, resurrected some of that Herzog piece that I had done. So this is what, 27 years later? And so anyway, people start coming up to Whitey and saying, hey, I saw that piece that Art Holliday did back in 1983. It's really fantastic. Whitey had never seen it. And so his personal assistant called our newsroom and asked us to put it on a DVD. And so we did, naturally. So then several weeks later, I get a call at my desk in the newsroom. Art, Whitey Herzog. Okay, well, that doesn't happen very much, you know. I mean, that's quite out of the ordinary for me. You know, so hey, Whitey, how's it going? I didn't expect to hear from you. What can I do for you? So then he starts talking about how he appreciates that we burnt the DVD for him. And then I could tell he was getting emotional because he started talking about how he sat down with his grandkids and watched it. You know, grandkids that weren't born, you know, back when grandpa, you know, he was the real deal here in St. Louis and became a St. Louis sports legend. And he said how meaningful that was to him. And he said, from now on, anytime you need anything from me, all you have to do is ask. And awesome. There were a couple of occasions where, well, I remember one specific when Stan Musial got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I wanted to get a soundbite from Whitey. Well, I got him on the phone. He says, oh, I'm running errands and I'm really busy this morning. So I'm thinking he's getting ready to try to turn me down, and that's fine. He goes, I'll just swing by the station and we'll do it there. You know? So he proved to be a man of his word. Whenever I asked him for anything, he gave it to me. And, you know, so it's not very often that a story that you do has life 27 years later.
That's for sure. That's how you know it's a great story.
Let's sneak some current Cardinals questions in here, because I know you're watching the team this year.
Every night.
What was your first reaction when the Cardinals got Nolan Arenado, and what have you seen from his play so far here in St. Louis?
Well, you know, remember the show Punked with Ashton Kutcher? I kept waiting for someone to say, Cardinal Nation, you got punked. We don't have Arenado.
Really though?
No, I mean, you know what? I'm probably like a lot of Cardinal fans. Leading up to that, I was bad-mouthing John Mozeliak. You know, I didn't like the team. I didn't think they had done enough to improve. And then as soon as they made the Arenado trade, you know, now, not that John Mozeliak can hear me talking to the television, but I apologized to him. I said, I take back every bad thing I said about you, Mo. You know,
you and a lot of
got it right
this year.
You know, I mean, this is a marriage made in heaven because of his personality and his desire. And now he's a Cardinal. He's in the perfect place. Now we got to do some more work to get a better team around him. I'm seeing some signs that our offense is improving. Wainwright deserved a victory last night. He's going to be fine. You know, the only thing that's stopping Jack Flaherty's march to being elite, he's just not efficient enough. You know, he's got everything going for him. He's just got to throw more strikes and get more ground ball outs. But everybody sees his talent. You know, he's a Cy Young Award waiting to happen. But we forget that he's still a young guy and he's still figuring things out. And so we're disappointed when he doesn't throw a shutout every night. But it's coming.
Or goes 7 to 8 innings. You're like,
Yeah, exactly. But it's coming. So he'll be fine.
Well, you mentioned Adam Wainwright. I got to ask you, just how impressive are him and Yadier Molina to still be doing this at their age? And did you expect that they would make it this long? I don't think anybody did. Even how much St. Louis loves them, this is just bonus.
Well, okay, let's start with Wainwright. I mean, several years ago, everybody thought he was done. He thought he was done. Okay, so for him to come back the way that he has and arguably become the Cardinals' best pitcher the last 2 seasons, nobody saw that coming.
No.
He didn't. He would be the first to admit that he didn't see it coming. So that's a hell of a story. Who knows? He might pitch 2 or 3 more years the way he's throwing the ball.
Yeah. And Yachty may play 2 or 3 more years.
Right. Now, Yachty, where's the fountain of youth, Yachty? We want to all take a sip.
I want to go there right now,
Exactly. He's got 38-year-old knees. That alone should make him retire.
Yep, that's what impresses me the most. I mean, this guy's caught 2,000 games for the Cardinals. Nobody's ever done that before.
No.
And here he is looking like a spring chicken, hitting cleanup and hitting the best on the team as the second oldest player in the NL. It's pretty wild.
Well, and how'd you like to be a young catcher stuck behind him?
Not fun at all. Yeah.
One of them, and I think they might have to do it again with Kisner here eventually.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'd be trying to find another position at this point and be like, or another team. Like, I gotta go.
So I'm gonna toss it over to Ahmad for some quick hits. But what's your season prediction this year for the Cardinals? How do you see this year, 2021, ending up?
There is so much that can happen. Let's talk about best case scenarios and worst case scenarios. Okay. Worst case, what if the outfield remains a mess? Okay. Worst case, what if the starting pitching doesn't significantly improve and they get deeper into games? Then there's a chance that maybe they're not a playoff team. But I think some of the problems are going to solve themselves. In terms of the outfield, I like what I'm seeing recently from Williams.
Yeah.
I think he might wind up being a starter. Mm-hmm. They should certainly keep starting him while he's swinging a hot bat. And let's see if he can keep it up. Harrison Bader is an enigma. We know what he can do with a glove. He's elite. Okay. But if he doesn't hit he can't be a regular in this lineup because we don't have enough hitting.
No.
Now, the game changers in our lineup, because Edmond seems to have settled in at the leadoff spot. He's doing well. Arenado and Goldschmidt, who's worried about them?
Nobody.
Now, cleanup, right now, Yachty's doing the job. We'll see what happens. But it's the 5th spot and beyond that's really going to determine whether the Cardinal offense significantly improves or not and finds some consistency. DeYoung, right now he's a feast or famine type player. So he needs to be lower in the lineup, and they've already done that. Carlson, man, I like him a lot, and he's trending upward. So, and his spot in the lineup reflects that. He's gone from lower in the lineup to he might wind up being your cleanup hitter before long. So the first part of our lineup is fine, but we got too many 6 and 7 hitters in our lineup. And most of them are outfielders.
Yep.
Which isn't good. No, you're absolutely right. So speaking of the current Cardinals, and you talked about how much you love the Cardinals, we want to go rapid fire with you, get some Q&A here. So Who was your favorite baseball player growing up, not on the Cardinals team?
Ooh, not on the Cardinals. I would probably say Willie Mays.
Okay. Now, who was your least favorite?
Who did you love to root against on a team that maybe played the Cardinals a lot?
Well, I had straight A tickets from the Post-Dispatch when I was in grade school, and I always picked the Cincinnati Reds games. The Big Red Machine, Hall of Famer at every other position. So, I hated Johnny Bench. I hated Tom Seaver. I hated Dave Concepcion. Pete. I hated Pete Rose. I hated the whole team, but I admired them because that's what I wanted the Cardinals to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, for you, you've interviewed a lot of players over the time, and we talked a lot about that Vince Coleman interview. Who happened to be your most intimidating interview as your time as a sportscaster?
Oddly enough, it was Darrell Porter. And here's why. In the late 80s, there was a well-publicized drug trial in Pittsburgh. And during the course of the trial testimony, a number of Major League Baseball players got called out for drug use. Okay, so we're trying to figure out how to localize this story in St. Louis. So I was ordered to go interview Darrell Porter, who was the catcher for the Cardinals at that time. During his years with the Kansas City Royals, he had substance abuse problems that he overcame. But he had nothing to do with the drug trial or the news story out of Pittsburgh. And I told that to my news managers. I said, Darrell Porter doesn't have anything to do with this. He's going to be pissed when I roll up at his house and I start asking him to talk about this trial. And there was all this pushback. No, you got to do this. You got to do this. So I went to Darrell Porter's house. And just as I predicted, he was livid. And he chewed me a new one. And, so weeks later, we talked at the ballpark and worked it out. And I explained, I said, Darrell, I didn't have any choice, man, but I knew that was going to be a difficult interview. And it was.
Okay. Now let's go on a much lighter note. Besides Vince Coleman, who's your favorite interview?
Oh man, that's like saying who's your favorite kid. Well, we talked about the Whitey Herzog interview, so that's one of them. I got to interview Michael Jordan 3 times.
Awesome.
Once as a college player when he was in St. Louis, North Carolina, was playing Mizzou at, I don't know if it was the arena at the time or the Checker Dome, whatever the name
was.
I think Mizzou beat North Carolina here, but I'd have to go back and look. That was a long time ago.
Corey just said they did. They did.
Okay. Okay. And then I got to interview him his rookie year with the Bulls because they played an exhibition game here. And then in one of the most fun stories that I ever did, it was the VP Fair around July 4th.
Ooh.
And they blocked off Memorial Drive in front of the Arch. And I think Coca-Cola sponsored some professional athletes coming into town. So there's a pickup game in front of the Arch with Michael Jordan, Johnny Dawkins from Duke, Roy Green, the wide receiver, defensive back from the football Cardinals, Patrick Ewing, and James Worthy, who I believe was with the Lakers then. And I've got a photo of James Worthy doing a finger roll like this. And you can see Michael Jordan, you can see Johnny Dawkins, you can see Roy Green in the photo. But the story that I did was the very first time you dunked. And so these guys are going down memory lane and talking about the very first time that they dunked and what it felt like. And that was a really fun story to do.
I can only imagine how fun that was. I would have been like,
why can't we have that? Why can't we have that anymore? That'd be awesome.
Exactly. Art, call some people and get a pickup basketball game down at the Arch. Gee, we're waiting on it. So a couple of more questions before we let you get out of here. What was your favorite Cardinal moment and where were you when it happened?
Well, as much of a Bob Gibson fan as I am, I'm very tempted to say striking out 17 Detroit Tigers and just dealing in the World Series. That's right up there. But come on, David Freese, Game 6. That game was over multiple times. The Cardinals were on life support. I was already making peace with the fact that we were going to lose another World Series, this time to the Texas Rangers. And then along comes the hometown kid. living the dream, you know,
Doesn't get
triple.
any better.
And then
Yeah.
home
Oh,
run,
man.
game, set, match. We will see you tomorrow night. Come
Right.
on.
Where
Come
were
on.
you when that happened? Where were you?
I was at home.
Okay.
I was at home screaming my lungs out.
That makes two of us then. That
Yeah.
makes two of us. Now, if we could go back in time, if there was any moment that you could have covered in baseball history, non-Cardinals related, what would it be?
Boy, that's
And that's our final question. So you get some time to think about it.
well, we all know about the legend of Babe Ruth, but come on, none of us were
Yeah.
around for that. You know,
Yeah.
there's not even, there's grainy film video of Babe Ruth. But I mean, wouldn't you love to go back in time and be at a game where, well, I wouldn't mind going to a game where Babe Ruth was pitching. He was a hell of a pitcher before they figured out that he was the all-time home run king.
Yeah,
I mean, but there's a lot of different eras, a lot of different great baseball players. I mentioned Willie Mays. I would have loved to have seen Willie Mays in his prime. They say,
Yeah.
a lot of old timers say in terms of all around game, I mean, come on. He was one of the all-time great center fielders. He hit over 600 home runs. He could steal bases. They talk about 5-tool players. Willie Mays had 10 tools, because every tool was better than everybody else.
Yeah, that is true. That is very, very true. If I had to pick one, it would be Deion Sanders playing in an NFL game and then playing in a baseball game later that day. That would be my choice. That's a remarkable.
Well, and you could say the same thing about Bo Jackson.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. I mean, you really can't go wrong because there's great athletes and great backstories going back decades.
Absolutely. Corey, what you think? Did we get enough out of Art on this one?
It's hard not to say Babe Ruth there. I think he hit his three homer game in the World Series was in St. Louis, and one of them went out of the stadium and broke a window across the street. I think that'd be a hard thing to pass up. Babe, if you can pick anything in baseball history, it's hard not to say Babe Ruth something related. So
and on that same topic, obviously we all know who Stan Musial was, but by the time I became a Cardinals fan, he had retired. So he was a legend. He wasn't a real player to me. So, to localize it, man, I'd like to go back and see Stan the Man when he just abused, was it the Cubs that he hit 5 home runs in a doubleheader? Who wouldn't want to go back and see that game?
Yeah.
Here comes that man again. And that's how the name came, He was the man.
It's like Mark Jackson saying now, Mama, there goes that man. It was alive back in the day for Stan.
Exactly.
Art, thank you so much for joining us here this week. Some great stories. I think we might have to have you back in a bit. I'm sure.
I'm about to say we can pick this
out of that brain.
And that'll do it for this week's episode of Cardinals Weekly. Thank you all for tuning in and enjoy all the Cardinals baseball that is coming your way this week. And of course, Corey and myself will be back next week.